I'm so grateful to be asked to be part of this wonderful celebration of Kadima's work. This is a moment when we get to share all of our love and enthusiasm for this community and renew our commitments to be together in it. When I think about Kadima, I do think about the times we spend together in beautiful Jewish ritual. But even before I get to those thoughts, those moments when I've gathered with all of you, specifically as Kadima, I'm first flooded with memories of so many moments of being with people in this community in struggles for justice in our region. Most powerfully, I remember this moment in 2018 when the new King County Youth Jail that we'd been fighting against since it was in its planning stages was actually under construction. And among the many actions taken to try to stop it, we organized a protest at the construction site centering people of faith. There were people there from many faiths and clergy from several communities in Seattle, and among them was Rabbi David from Kadima. And people gave a bunch of speeches, and some people locked themselves to the construction site to halt the work. And it was while Rabbi David was praying with the tefillin wrapped around his arms that the police began arresting those who were blocking the driveway into the construction site. It still moves me to tears, that memory of watching the police grab and take away so many people I love, including very young students of mine who had never before participated in anything like this. I just remember watching people's bravery and commitment and solidarity with one another and with everyone who has ever been and ever will be caged, in the context of this Jewish prayer that Rabbi David was offering. In that moment, I felt our vulnerability, and I felt the strong current of connection to generations of Jewish fighters. And of course, Kadima members have been and remain so much a part of the struggle to oppose that jail, and now the ongoing struggle to close it and all the other deadly King County jails. I remember in May 2018, Kadima members who were part of JVP Seattle held Shabbat services at the construction site, beautifully linking the fight for justice for criminalized and imprisoned people in Seattle and in Palestine. When I think about Kadima, I think of all these moments of struggle, all these links in our work in Seattle, the Kadima members who locked down with me to block deportation buses from leaving the Northwest Detention Center, the Kadima members who stood up against pinkwashing and got the city of Seattle to cancel Stand With Us and Israeli consulate-sponsored events, the Kadima members who've been part of the campaign to stop the Seattle police from training in Israel, those who've been working to defund the Seattle police, the Kadima members who show up at the Trans March year after year and do political education about US military imperialism, Islamophobia, police violence, and Israeli colonialism. This community is so immensely rich with solidarity, courage, connection, and commitment. These things feel so significant right now. I've been spending more and more time in recent years studying fascism and anti-fascism and seeing what we can learn about anti-fascist resistance across many times and spaces. We're in a terrifying moment, one that it feels difficult to be prepared for. It's also a time full of potential. There is no doubt that crisis, rupture, and disaster are present and building. The daily conditions of people's lives are worsening. Rents are higher than ever. Food is more expensive than ever. The defense budget is larger than ever. The pandemic continues. And untold numbers of people are facing chronic illness and disability under an unethical system of healthcare for profit. Each fire, flood, storm, blackout, water crisis, and pandemic seems to be a new opportunity for our opponents to make the rich richer and the poor poorer. And with each new disaster, we see that the government doesn't show up for people, that whatever shreds of disaster relief exist leave out poor people and people of color, and that the government is more likely to show up with guns than with medicine, housing, and other necessities. The systems we live under have created an unimaginably severe ecological crisis. They're focused only on profit and domination, and they are continuing that approach unless we stop them. The history of anti-fascist organizing makes clear that to fight fascism, we need direct action, solidarity, and a diversity of bold tactics. We can't fight their systems through insider strategies. Fascism has consistently arisen with permission from official systems. Anti-fascists understand that oppression is not a matter of misunderstanding. Resistance is not about negotiating, requesting, or convincing elites that systems of domination are wrong. The people who facilitate caging, deportation, criminalization, poverty, and pollution are not just operating under bad ideas that we can clear up with good information. The prison and policing system is not racist by accident, it is by design. The people who make war know very well that their wars are not humanitarian operations, no matter what their war machine PR tells us. We cannot win calls for the police or soldiers to follow the Constitution or international law. These forces are lawless by design. The poisons that industry continues to unleash, they know they're poisonous. No number of clever policy reports will convince our opponents to stop devouring our communities. This is a system that is about squeezing the most profit possible out of the land, people, and animals, keeping people desperate and controllable. When the government or industry takes action that appears to care for people, it's a concession to keep things going, giving us as little as possible to legitimize its legitimate authority. It's not an accident that half the budgets of our counties and cities go to police, and more than half of the federal discretionary budget goes to the military. You can't keep this system of extraction going without all these forces in place to make people pay these rents, go to these dangerous and degrading jobs, follow these dehumanizing rules. So in this time, we have to see what anti-fascists have always done, which isn't asking nicely, it's stopping what must be stopped. Right now, I'm taking particular inspiration by studying people who have broken rules, who've stopped trying to go inside the system to make the change, who've been bold and risk-taking and brave. I think about the anti-whaling activists from the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. In 1986, they sunk the entire Icelandic whaling fleet and sabotaged the only whale processing station in Iceland. Essentially, they stopped whaling in Iceland through their action. I think about the yellowfinch tree sit, an aerial blockade in Montgomery County, Virginia, against the Mountain Valley Pipeline. The blockade lasted 932 days from 2018 to 2021. It's the longest continual aerial blockade in the United States. They rotated in and out of trees and were supported by teams on the ground, providing food and supplies. I think about these young people, some of whom I got to meet, who dropped out of school and jobs and dedicated their lives for years to blocking this pipeline with their bodies, facing off with armed law enforcement and huddling together in the cold winters. I think about Jessica Resnick and Ruby Montoya, who used oxyacetylene torches to melt holes in pipeline valves in the Dakota Access Pipeline and set fire to equipment in 2017. I think about Truus and Freddie Overstegen, who were teenage girls who were part of the Dutch resistance to the Nazi occupation in World War II. They, along with other girls in their resistance group, seduced Nazi soldiers at bars, lured them outside, and assassinated them. I think about black bug squadrons during the Great Depression. These were groups of unemployed people, usually black activists, often communists, who would find out about an eviction that was supposed to happen. They would march through poor neighborhoods and gather lots and lots of people. They would arrive at the eviction site, sometimes with thousands of people, and forcibly keep the marshal from carrying out the eviction. They sang spirituals that would not let the eviction happen, using just the power of their bodies. These squadrons stopped 1/3 of evictions in New York City in the early 1930s, 77,000 households. I think about the Battle of Cable Street in 1936, when fascists marched on the Jewish quarter in London. The 5,000 fascist marchers were protected by 7,000 cops, but over 100,000 counter-protesters showed up: Jews, trade unionists, anarchists, and Irish workers. They fought fascists and police, throwing furniture out of the windows of their homes onto the fascists and cops in the streets. They used their bodies to block the march. I think about how scared all these people must have been when they were doing these things, but also how pleasurable it might have been, that sense of certainty working together along their comrades, deciding to do this together, to risk everything each time. There's a kind of certainty needed to do this work, a willingness to know that we have opponents and to name them. It requires resisting liberalism's tricky moves. They want to offer surface reforms and tokenization and tell us we're included and declare that they're now fair and equal. They're always going to create another investigation, provide another procedure for voicing our concerns into the void. Meanwhile, their objectives remain the same. We have to discern this and take action. There is absolutely no time to wait. We need each other more than ever. We need to help each other survive these conditions, and we need to boldly attack and dismantle these deadly systems. To do that, we need spaces to build from our shared values, to cultivate trust and love together, to grieve and to pray for miracles. Kadima has been and is creating that space, a place for us to meet and be contemplative and quiet together, to rejoice and connect, a place for us to influence each other and deepen our learning about the conditions we're living through and what it takes to transform them. I'm so grateful to be part of this community and part of this celebration. I hope we all give generously to Kadima to keep this beautiful work going into the future, showing up for each other in this organization with our time, energy, care, love, and money however we can. We need organizations like Kadima to thrive right now, to get bigger, to draw in tons of new people, to build powerful spaces to cultivate our love and boldness, our hearts, and our chutzpah.